There is a man whose name you know, whose work surrounds you right now in this very moment. Every light in the room you are sitting in, every device you are holding, every wire running through every wall of every building in every city on this entire planet. All of it exists because of one man, one vision, one mind that the world spent decades trying to destroy. His name was Nikola Tesla. And before he changed everything, before the world ran on his ideas, before history was forced to acknowledge what it spent so long trying to bury, he was called crazy, delusional, dangerous, a fraud, a dreamer who had lost his mind. The people who said these things were not uneducated. They were not ignorant. They were the most powerful area, most celebrated, most respected figure of their time. Scientists, businessmen, journalists, people the world trusted to know what was real and what was not. And they looked at Nikola Tesla, at his ideas, at his vision, at the extraordinary thing he was trying to build. And they said, this man is dangerous. This man is wrong. This man should be stopped. And here is why I am telling you this story today. Not because Tesla is an interesting historical figure, not because his science is fascinating, but because what happened to Tesla is happening to you right now. Maybe not in the same scale, maybe not with the same stakes, but the same fundamental experience of having something real inside you, something genuine, something that the world around you does not yet understand, does not yet believe in, and is actively working to discourage. That experience is not unique to Tesla. It is the experience of every single person who has ever tried to become something that the world was not yet ready for. This video is Tesla's story, but it is also yours. And by the end, you will understand something about both that will change the way you see everything you are going through. Stay with me, because this story does not start with triumph. It starts the way all real stories start, in the dark. Nikola Tesla was born in 1856 in a small village in Serbia during a lightning storm. His mother looked at the lightning splitting the sky, and the midwife said, "This child will be a child of darkness." His mother looked at her and said, "No, he will be a child of light." She could not have known how completely right she was. From the beginning, Tesla's mind worked differently. Not in the comfortable way, not in the way that teachers celebrate and parents frame on walls. Differently in the way that made people uncomfortable. Differently in the way that made those around him unsure of what they were looking at. As a young man, Tesla could perform complex calculations entirely in his mind. He could visualize complete mechanical systems, three-dimensionally in his imagination, and run them, test them, modify them entirely without paper, without instruments, without anything external at all. His mind was the laboratory. When he tried to explain this to people, they did not celebrate it. They worried about it. His professors thought he was cheating. His peers thought he was showing off. The people who should have recognized genius saw instead something that made them uncomfortable, something that deviated too far from what they understood, something they could not categorize and therefore could not trust. Think about that for a moment. Think about a time in your own life when you saw something clearly, when you understood something that the people around you could not yet see. When you tried to explain it, and instead of recognition, you received doubt. Instead of encouragement, you received caution. Instead of support, you received the quiet but devastating message that maybe you were wrong, maybe you were confused, maybe the way you saw things was not as reliable as the way everyone else saw things. Tesla felt that his entire life, and he kept going anyway. He moved to Paris, then to America. He arrived in New York in 1884 with 4 cents in his pocket, a book of poetry, a letter of recommendation, and a mind that contained ideas that would eventually power the entire modern world. He went to work for Thomas Edison, and this is where the story gets darker. Edison was already famous, already powerful, already the celebrated genius of his age. And Edison used direct current DC to power his electrical systems. Tesla saw immediately with the clarity that defined his entire life that alternating current AC was superior in every measurable way, more efficient, more powerful, capable of traveling vast distances that direct current could never achieve. Tesla tried to tell Edison. Edison refused to listen, not because Edison did not understand, but because Edison had already invested everything, his reputation, his business, his legacy, in direct current, and Tesla's idea threatened all of it. So Edison did not just dismiss Tesla, he worked to destroy him. He publicly electrocuted animals using an alternating current to convince the public it was dangerous. He used his fame, his platform, his influence to paint Tesla as a fraud, a dreamer, a man whose ideas would kill people. And most of the world believed him. Sound familiar? The person with the most to lose from your growth, using their position, their influence, their credibility to make sure you stay small. You know this feeling, even if your Edison is not a famous inventor, even if your Edison is just someone in your life who feels threatened by what you are becoming. The dynamic is exactly the same. Tesla left Edison. He had no choice. And what followed was one of the darkest periods in the life of one of the greatest minds in human history. With no money, no patron, no support, Tesla was forced to dig ditches. The man who could visualize entire electrical systems in his mind, who could see the future of human civilization more clearly than almost anyone alive, was digging ditches in the streets of New York to survive. Think about that. Not as a historical fact. Feel it. The gap between what he values and what his circumstances forced him to do. The gap between the vision in his mind and the reality of his daily life. Have you ever felt that gap? The distance between who you know you are and what your current situation reflects? The frustration of carrying something genuine, something you know has value, while the external world gives you no indication that it sees what you see? That gap is where most people stop. Not because the vision was wrong, but because the distance between the vision and the current reality becomes too painful to keep living in. Tesla did not stop. He kept working, he kept thinking, he kept developing his ideas in his mind, even while his hands were in the dirt. And eventually he found backing. George Westinghouse believed in him, invested in him, and together they began building something that Edison and the entire establishment was determined to prevent. The war of currents began. Tesla and Westinghouse on one side, Edison and General Electric on the other. The entire future of electrical power hanging in the balance. And Edison, with all his fame, all his influence, all his resources, fought with everything he had to make sure Tesla lost. He nearly succeeded. There were moments, dark, genuine, terrifying moments, when it seemed like Edison would win. when the money was running out, when the public opposition was overwhelming, when even Westinghouse, under financial pressure, considered abandoning the project. And in those moments, Tesla did something that I want you to understand deeply. He did not fight harder in the conventional sense. He did not get louder. He did not try to match Edison's tactics. He went back to the work. He went back to the laboratory. He went back to the one thing that nobody could take from him, no matter how hard they tried: his mind, his vision, his absolute unshakable certainty that what he could see was real, even when the world could not see it yet. This is the lesson that nobody talks about when they tell Tesla's story. Not the invention, not the science, the decision made in the darkest moments to trust the vision over the noise, to trust what you know over what the world is currently telling you. When is the last time you did that? When is the last time the noise it got so loud that you went back to the work instead of fighting the noise? In 1893, Nikola Tesla and George Westinghouse won the contract to illuminate the world's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, the largest world fair in American history. 100,000 light bulbs powered by alternating current lit up the night sky in a display so extraordinary that people wept. Many of them had never seen electric light before. And in that moment, standing in the light that his vision had created, Tesla had won. Not just the contract, not just the argument, the future. But here is what the motivational videos never tell you. Winning did not fix everything. Triumph did not erase the darkness. Because the world, once it accepts your idea, does not always accept you. Tesla's relationship with Westinghouse deteriorated. His patents were challenged. His funding was repeatedly cut. His laboratory, the one he had built, with everything he had burned to the ground in 1895. Everything he had created, every record of his work, every prototype, every piece of equipment, gone in one night. Most people, after building something extraordinary, after winning the battle they almost lost, would not survive that, would not recover from watching everything physically burn after everything it cost to build it. But Tesla, within days of the fire, was already describing what he would rebuild. Not what he had lost, what he would build next. Because here is what Tesla understood that most people never do. The work was never in the laboratory. The work was never in the equipment. The work was never in any external thing that could be taken, stolen, burned, or destroyed. The work was in his mind. And his mind was the one thing that nobody in all the years of opposition, ridicule, theft, and destruction had ever been able to touch. What is the equivalent in your life? What do you carry that cannot be taken from you? What exists inside you that survives every setback, every loss, every fire that life has sent your way? Because that thing, whatever it is your Tesla laboratory. And as long as it exists, nothing has truly been lost. Tesla went on. He developed wireless communication. He worked on the transmission of energy without wires. He envisioned a world connected by invisible signals, carrying information across vast distances without physical connection. He described in the late 1800s something that sounds remarkably like the internet, and the world called him crazy again. Tesla died in 1943, alone in a small hotel room in New York. He had no significant money, no family around him. The patents that should have made him one of the wealthiest men in history had been signed away years earlier to save Westinghouse from bankruptcy. He gave up his royalties, his financial security, his claim to the wealth that his ideas had generated, because he believed in the work more than in the reward. And the morning after he died, the United States government entered his hotel room and seized his papers, his notes, his plans, his final ideas, the last thoughts of one of the greatest minds in human history, taken before the world could see them. By every conventional measure of success, Nikola Tesla died a failure. No fortune, no family, no recognition from the establishment that had spent decades trying to erase him. And yet, the city he died in was powered by his invention. The radio playing somewhere in that hotel used technology he pioneered. The electrical systems running through every wall of every building in every city in the entire world were built on his vision. He died surrounded by the physical manifestation of his life's work, even as the world refused to acknowledge that it was his. Now I want you to sit with something. Tesla never saw the full recognition. He never lived to see his name celebrated the way it is today. He never received the financial reward that his contributions deserved. He never experienced the complete external validation that we are told is the measure of a life well lived. And yet there is not a single moment documented in any record, any letter, any account of his life, where Tesla expressed regret for the path he chose, for the work he did, for the vision he pursued against every possible obstacle the world could place in front of him. Because Tesla understood something that took me a long time to understand, and that I believe is the most important thing this entire video has been building toward. The world's opinion of your work is not the measure of your work. The recognition you receive is not the measure of your contribution. The financial reward you accumulate is not the measure of your value. The only true measure of a life is whether you were faithful to what you could see when the world could not yet see it, whether you kept going when the opposition was loudest, whether you trusted the vision over the noise, whether you went back to the work when everything else was burning. You are facing something right now, a doubt, a setback, an opposition, a version of the world telling you that what you believe in is not real, is not possible, is not worth the price you are paying. Tesla heard that his entire life from the most powerful voices of his age. And the lights are still on. The question is not whether your vision is real. The only question that has ever mattered is whether you are willing to be the kind of person who keeps going long enough for the world to catch up. Tesla was, and the world runs on his dreams. What will the world run on when it finally catches up to yours?